जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय यशोदानंदना जय ब्रज जनरंजना जय यशोदानंदना जय ब्रज जनरंजना जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा प्रभुपदा श्रीला प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा 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 जय गुरुदेवा Jam Vishnupat Paramahans Parivarjakacharya Stotra Shat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jam Vishnupat Paramahans Parivarjakacharya Stotra Shat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Granth-raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Text 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. śrī-bhagavān uvāca yat tri-guṇam avyaktam nityam sad-asad-ātmakam pradhānam prakṛtim prāhur aviśeṣaṁ viśeṣa-vat. śrī-bhagavān uvāca yat tri-guṇam avyaktam nityam sad-asad-ātmakam pradhānam prakṛtim prāhur aviśeṣaṁ viśeṣa-vat. śrī-bhagavān uvāca yat tri-guṇam avyaktam nityam sad-asad-ātmakam pradhānam prakṛtim prāhur aviśeṣaṁ viśeṣa-vat. Pradhānam prakṛtim prāhur aviśeṣaṁ viśeṣa-vat. Vaishnavis. śrī-bhagavān uvāca yat tri-guṇam avyaktam nityam sad-asad-ātmakam pradhānam prakṛtim prāhur śrī-bhagavān uvāca yat tri-guṇam avyaktam nityam sad-asad-ātmakam pradhānam prakṛtim prāhur aviśeṣaṁ viśeṣa-vat. śrī-bhagavān uvāca. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Yat, now further, Tat, that, tri-guṇam, combination of the three modes, avyaktam, unmanifested, nityam, eternal, sat-asat-ātmakam, consisting of cause and effect, Pradhānam, the pradhan, prakṛtim, prakrti, prāhuḥ, they call, aviśeṣaṁ, undifferentiated, viśeṣa-vat, possessing differentiation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Please respond. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of the manifest state and is called pradhan. It is called prakrti when in the manifested stage of existence. Purport. The Lord points out material nature in its subtle stage, which is called pradhāna, and he analyzes this pradhāna. The explanation of pradhāna and prakriti is that pradhāna is the subtle, undifferentiated sum total of all material elements. Although they are undifferentiated, one can understand that the total material elements are contained therein. When the total material elements are manifested by the interaction of the three modes of material nature, the manifestation is called prakriti. Impersonalists say that Brahman is without variegatedness and without differentiation. One may say that pradhāna is the Brahman stage, but actually the Brahman stage is not pradhāna. Pradhāna is distinct from Brahman because in Brahman there is no existence of the material modes of nature. One may argue that the mahat-tattva is also different from pradhāna because in the mahat-tattva there are manifestations. The actual explanation of pradhāna, however, is given here. When the cause and effect are not clearly manifested, avyakta, the reaction of the total elements does not take place. And that stage of material nature is called pradhāna. Pradhāna is not the time element because in the time element there are actions and reactions, creation and annihilation. Nor is it the jiva or marginal potency of living entities or designated conditional living entities because the designations of the living entities are not eternal. One adjective used in this connection is nitya, which indicates eternality. Therefore, the condition of material nature immediately previous to its manifestation is called pradhāna. The translation once again. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the unmanifested eternal combination of the three modes is the cause of the manifest state and is called pradhāna. It is called prakriti when in the manifested stage of existence. Om jnana-timirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedant Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're reading from Canto 3 of Bhagavatam, which is entitled The Status Quo, and the chapter is 26, which is entitled Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, and we are on text number 10. And this is actually continuing the conversation between Lord Kapila, who is an incarnation of Lord Krishna, and his mother, Mother Devahuti. So this is an extremely profound and deep conversation which is happening between mother and a son, but actually it's between a master and the disciple, because Mother Devahuti actually accepted her own son, Lord Kapila, as her teacher. So in this case, it is mentioned how the Lord is making a distinction, very technical actually here. I was spending a lot of time trying to understand yesterday the various terminologies which are used in the Bhagavatam: pradhāna, prakriti, mahat-tattva, purush, Maya, energies, and so forth. So it's to me, it's extremely scientific, and that's why it's very attractive to me. So I'm just going to go over what Srila Prabhupada has mentioned, and he's made it very, very clear in the purport, in case there is confusion about what is pradhāna, what is prakriti, and what is purusha. So three elements that he specifically mentioned is pradhāna, prakriti, and mahat-tattva. So the distinction is actually very clear. Pradhāna is the unmanifested stage. That means it has all the ingredients, but those ingredients have not been churned. The interactions of the modes of material nature have not occurred, so it is lying dormant. And so Srila Prabhupada writes here, pradhāna is unmanifest. It is not being shown to us. It is avyakta. That means unmanifest. But it is eternal. Why is it eternal? because it's Krishna's creation. Krishna has all the ingredients there. But what does it make? What does it take to mix those ingredients and actually produce Prakriti? Only one thing, the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can talk about Brahma being the secondary creator, Maya being the cause of the cosmic manifestation, but without the glance of the Supreme Lord, none of this pradhan will be converted into Prakriti. So everything depends on the Lord here. And pradhan is very subtle and it is undifferentiated. Example is, which is given by Srila Prabhupada in another purport that I read, is the example of earth. Earth is everywhere. But we can take the earth, mix it with water, convert it into pots, convert it into dolls and so forth. So when earth is lying the way it is completely undifferentiated, subtle, but it's eternal, it's there. But we can mix water with earth and turn it into beautiful objects. So now that pradhan becomes Prakriti. So somebody has to come and actually mix the earth with water. So that means churn it. And that interaction with the material modes of nature is happening in pradhan as a result of the glance of the Supreme Lord here. And similarly, another example is a lump of gold. So gold is harvested from the mines, but then gold has to be melted and turned into ornaments or different kinds of coins and bars. Gold as it is undifferentiated. So that is pradhan. But once you differentiate it and turn it into different beautiful shapes, that is Prakriti or mahat-tattva. So it's very easy to understand with examples here. So Prakriti on the opposite side is manifest. That means it's revealed to us. It is vyakta. But unlike pradhan, it is not eternal. It is temporary or asat. Why temporary? Because it's created and dissolved, created and dissolved, created and dissolved. So depending on Lord Brahma's life cycle, it's created and then it is annihilated. That is why it is temporary. And Prakriti, in Prakriti, all the material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, the three subtle elements and so forth, they are all manifested simply by the interaction of the material modes of nature. So when I was reading all these technical, wonderful technicalities, I was thinking in terms of example, because it's really easy to understand in terms of example. So the one example that came in my mind was like baking a cake. So when you have cake, you have the flour, you have the oil, you have the sugar, baking powder. But if you put them on your countertop and you don't mix it, nothing's going to happen. The cake will not form. So somebody has to come and mix all the ingredients, put the cake in the oven, and then the cake comes out like a beautiful entity. In the same way, in pradhan, that mixing has to occur before pradhan can be converted into Prakriti. So that is the big distinction here. And so Srila Prabhupada has given very nice indication so that we don't get confused, at least I don't get confused. Is pradhan Brahman? Is pradhan time element? Or is pradhan jiva? And here he clearly indicates that pradhan is not Brahman. So it's very easy sometimes to misinterpret, because Brahman is impersonal and undifferentiated. So can we say pradhan is Brahman? No, pradhan is not Brahman. Why? Because Brahman is the first feature of the Lord and it lacks the material modes of nature. Simply because of that distinction, pradhan is not categorized as Brahman. Brahman is, of course, one of the features of the Lord, but Brahman and pradhan are distinctive. Likewise, is pradhan the time element? Even again, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, no. Why? Because the element of time, kal, has reactions, actions and reactions, creation and annihilation. Whereas pradhan, there is no action and no creation and annihilation going on. It's completely lying dormant. So it is not also the time element. And finally, is pradhan the jiva? No, pradhan is also not the jiva, because the designations of the jiva are not eternal. Today I'm a human being. In my next lifetime I may be a bird. In my third lifetime I could be a tree. So all these designations are changing. But in pradhan, nothing changes. It's eternal. So because of all these three distinctions, pradhan is neither Brahman, nor the time element, nor the jiva. And in fact, I was reading the class that Srila Prabhupada gave yesterday. I was listening to it on this specific chapter and this purport, and I'm just going to read a little bit, just 2 or 3 sentences. This is in December 22nd, 1974, Mumbai. Quote, that mahat-tattva is above this universe, above the sky. Above the sky, there are 7 layers. Each layer is 10 times more than the other layer. In this way, that is called mahat-tattva. Total material elements, they are stocked there. And then these varieties take place. And above that mahat-tattva, there is spiritual world. Paras tasmat tu bhava anya, another material nature. That is called Brahma Loka or Vaikuntha Loka. So this is coming directly from Srila Prabhupada's class here. And then Srila Jiva Goswami has brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly indicated in his Tattva Sandarbhas, section 62, he has explained Pradhāna and Prakriti and Mahat-tattva. It gets quite esoteric because Srila Jiva Goswami is extremely scholarly. So it takes quite some time to understand his writing too, at least for me. But he's explained Pradhāna and Prakriti very, very nicely here. He's mentioned that in Pradhāna, the 3 modes remain in a state of equilibrium. So they're stable and they're balanced. So if anything is stable and balanced, it's very dormant. So you have to disturb it, physically go and disturb it. In this case, that disturbance or agitation is actually caused by the glance of the Supreme Lord. And that's how the creation starts taking place as a result of agitation of the modes of material nature. And it is mentioned that his glance, the Lord's glance, is very similar to the impregnation of Prakriti. The Lord impregnates Prakriti, and then, of course, the cosmic manifestation takes place here. And it is also mentioned that the mahat-tattva, so sometimes Prakriti and mahat-tattva are used synonymously because mahat-tattva is the basis of all creation, of all cosmic manifestation, but there are subtle differences. This mahat-tattva, when it is influenced by the time potency, the element of time or kal, gives rise to 3 kinds of egos. So this is something actually new for me, which I learned yesterday. That when the mahat-tattva is disturbed or influenced by the potency of time, 3 kinds of egos are actually executed here. Because when we talk about the 5 gross senses and the 3 subtle senses, we talk about mind, intelligence, and false ego. But actually there's 3 kinds of egos. And those 3 kinds are ego in the mode of goodness, which is known as vaikārika. And then ego in the mode of passion, which is known as taijasa, and ego in the mode of ignorance, which is known as false ego, or what we call tamasic ego here. So even the ego is of 3 kinds. The ego which is in the mode of goodness generates the mind. The ego which is in the mode of passion generates the intelligence and the senses. And finally, the ego, which is in the mode of ignorance, generates the false ego. So this is all happening as a result of mahat-tattva being influenced by time and giving rise to these 3 kinds of egos. Although generally, when we talk about, we refer to the ego very simply as false ego, as one of the 3 subtle elements here. So if we look at the hierarchy, which is again given by Srila Jiva Goswami, we start with Pradhāna, which is dormant. The Lord looks at the Pradhāna, and the Pradhāna is all the ingredients and the material modes of nature. When the Lord glances on Pradhāna, it is immediately turned into Prakriti, where all the cosmic manifestations start occurring. And then when Mahat-tattva is touched by the element of time, it generates the 3 kinds of egos. And from the 3 kinds of egos, we get the mind, intelligence, false ego, and the senses, the working senses, and the knowledge acquiring senses. So this is a very nice chart which is produced by ISKCON Educational Services, which actually lists the 24 elements of Sankhya philosophy. It's very easy. Rather than reading volumes of pages, one can look at the chart and see, okay, how the Pradhāna is connected to Mahat-tattva and how it's connected to all the senses and the sense objects also. And here it is going further. It is mentioned that this material creation is manifest during Lord Brahma's lifespan. And we cannot even fathom or imagine how long Lord Brahma lives. It's a huge amount of time, it is mentioned. He lives for 100 years. And his one day equals 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapar and Kali Yuga. We are currently in the Kali Yuga. So one day is 1,000 cycles, and he lives 365 days in 1 year, and he lives 100 years. So if you do the math, I think it's coming to trillions or quadrillions. It's an unfathomable number here. And it is mentioned, it's very interestingly, just for management purposes. For all of you who are managers, you realize you need a lot of help. You need to divide your day, finance, budget, food, and so forth. So Lord Brahma also divides his divisions into 14 different divisions only for managerial reasons. And each division is known as Manvantara. And the person responsible for that Manvantara is known as Manu. And they're all appointed. It is very important to understand for us that all these are designations. So Manu is a designation, Indra is a designation, Chandra is a designation. So they're not personalities, although in simple language we say Lord Surya, Lord Sun God, Lord Chandra, but these are actually designations. And if there is no qualified person to hold that post, the Lord himself holds that post. It is mentioned here in our Shastras. So currently, we are in the 7th Manu. And this 7th Manu is known as Vaivasvata Manu. And it is mentioned here, we are currently in the 7th Manvantara. We are in the middle of Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma is in his 51st year right now. So he's just crossed half of his lifetime. And he has 49 more years to go. So we're just halfway through Lord Brahma's lifetime. And the Manvantara, which was read just prior to this, was Chakshusha Manu. And right now we are in the Vaivasvata Manu. And it is mentioned the next one, Manvantara, which hopefully we would not be around to see it, is Savarani Manu. And Vivasvan would be the presiding deity at that point here. So this is a brilliant synopsis given by Srila Jiva Goswami here. And I'm going to read something very nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada in Vanipedia. This is coming from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 558. Because now we'll try to make a connection. Where does Maya come in? So we talked about Pradhāna, Prakriti and mahat-tattva and the element of time and the knowledge acquiring modes and the other modes here, for the 10 elements here. So where does Maya figure in then? So it's very confusing. Where is Maya connected here? So Srila Prabhupada has written very nicely, very simplistically, Maya is the external energy of the Lord. It is the Bahiranga Shakti. And she is divided into 2 parts. She is both the cause of the cosmic manifestation, all that we see around us, and she is also the provider of the ingredients to make this cosmic manifestation. So she is both. She is the cause, that means the causal effect, in which case she is known as Maya, and she is also the supplier of the ingredients, and as a supplier, she is referred to as Pradhāna. So this is how Maya is connected to Pradhāna. And so it is mentioned here by Srila Prabhupada, the material energy is not the original cause of the material manifestation. Rather, Sri Mahavishnu produces the cosmic manifestation. So Maya is Krishna's servitor. And she has a very thankless job to do. Because Krishna has given her this job to keep us bound in this material nature. And she doesn't like doing it. She wants to take us all back. Actually, give us back because we are the children of the Lord. She wants to take us back. But she has been given a service by the Lord because of her rebellious nature, because of her free will. So she is simply following the Lord's order here as Maya or Pradhāna. And then Srila Prabhupada also writes here about mahat-tattva. This is from Bhagavatam 4.8.78. The mahat-tattva, or the sum total of the material creation, is to be understood to be the ultimate end of all universes, including all the living entities therein. Brahman is the resort of the mahat-tattva, which includes all material and spiritual entities. It is described in this connection that the Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is the master of both Pradhāna and Purush. Pradhāna means subtle matter, such as ether. Purush means the spiritual spark living entities who are entangled in that subtle material existence. So if we read these quotes by Srila Prabhupada, it's very easy to understand what are the various distinctions between all these three elements that we have discussed here. So I actually, while I was doing my reading yesterday, I just wanted to share something with you that I experienced personally about 2 weeks ago. There was a program at USC about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I went for that program, and there were a lot of students there. And this was a program where this guest speaker was His Holiness S.B. Keshav Swami Maharaj, and I was at his book table, and one young Indian gentleman came to me, and we were just conversing, and I asked him whether he had read the Bhagavad Gita. He says he got a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. I said, was it Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada? He said, yes. I said, have you read it? And he says, no, I tried reading it. So I wanted to really get stuff out of him, like, why is he so hesitant? He says, I tried reading it, but it was complicated. I said, why was it complicated? He said, it could not resonate with me. So I just wanted to see. So that was a big, like, a challenge for me. Why that Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita does not resonate with certain people. So I asked him, which Gita are you reading? He's reading Yogananda's Gita, which is completely impersonalistic, essentially. And then he also said, well, I'm reading Bhagavatam right now. So I said, have you finished reading the Gita? He says, no. Well, I said, it's better to finish the Gita first before you read the Bhagavatam, because somebody had given him the entire Bhagavatam set, and he found that very interesting, so he was flipping through the pages. So yesterday, I kept on meditating, which is, I think, very important for us preachers to understand when people say, Bhagavad Gita as it is does not resonate with me. So I actually was in deep contemplation yesterday trying to understand the reasons why people say that Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita does not resonate with them. And it's a very honest admission, and we should be ready for it. And we should be able to contemplate how do we explain to them to make them understand this is the actual version. How do we make them understand? And that takes a lot of practice here. So I came up with 5 reasons, and these are just my humble reasons, which I was meditating on why when people say it does not resonate. And please do correct me, all the senior devotees, if you have any more comments here. The first reason is, of course, that we all know people read the Bhagavad Gita without the correct mindset. They don't have the mindset. And they utilize their own endeavor. That means my own scholarly academic qualifications. I'm going to read the Gita as another book or another encyclopedia. And let me see what's in there. So that's an offensive mentality. We do know that. So when we don't have the correct mindset, we can get completely bewildered by what's written in the Gita, particularly when Srila Prabhupada is trying to explain the purport. So that was my one reason why it wasn't resonating. My second reason, which I again contemplated, was the truth in the Bhagavatam and the Gita it's pretty stark, the truth, when we see, especially when we talk about how we have rebelled with the Lord, we have the free will, and we are conditioned, and we are shackled, and we are bound, and we will be taking births millions and millions of times, and we don't know when we are released whether we're going to the hellish planets. And in the Bhagavatam, the description of the hellish planets is very, very hellish, actually. It's very scary. So when we start reading all this, and people realize that the world is not as rosy as I thought it to be, and the truth comes out very stark, very harsh, but that's the reality, they close the book. Because it's not aligning with their comfort zone, that I don't want to read this. This is giving me a very stark picture. I want to enjoy my life. So that's the second reason where they found the truth to be very unpalatable. The third reason, which is actually very much mentioned in the Shastra, is envy of Krishna. Why? When the people realize that God is actually a person, that he has transcendental senses, he's watching me, and he dresses, he eats, he dances, he sings. When people realize he has a personal form, they immediately feel there is a controller behind me who's watching me all the time. Whereas people who feel that God is an energy, it's very abstract. Energy doesn't have eyes. Energy is not coming to you with a stick behind you. It's very abstract, so it's very comfortable that, oh, there's some energy behind me, no one's watching me. Same thing with us when we are little children. We can do all kinds of mischievous acts, but the moment we see our mother and father behind, we get nervous and we stop doing it. So there is a person behind us. So the third reason is when people get to know that God is actually not an impersonal energy, but there is a personality behind us, they're not comfortable with that idea. Some of us are not us, some of people are not comfortable. So they close the Gita, or it doesn't resonate with them. And finally, the last reason is people are innocent. In the Kali Yuga, they can be influenced by anything. And now the great influencer of our Kali Yuga is artificial intelligence. It's all over the place. I'm coming from education and it's proving to be a huge problem for us. But we won't go into that. But people can get negatively influenced by non-conformists. That means people who have their own agendas of enhancing their so-called spiritual sects or their religions or their philosophies, and the innocent people get influenced by them. And these people who prophesize themselves to be scholars like Gyanis, but they are not devotees. And so they tell them that this is very sentimental. You need to go back and read the real Gyani Gita or the real scholarly Gita. And these innocent people get influenced. So these are the 5 reasons that came to my mind why people say that I like this Gita or I don't like that Gita. And I think we need to be ready with our responses to explain to these people what is correct and what is not correct. So that's sort of my one personal story. And I was very curious to know, I just did a Google search of how many commentaries are there on Bhagavad Gita, and there's just too many commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. And so it's very easy to get confused. And one commentary that Srila Prabhupada mentions quite a bit in a very negative manner is the one written by Dr. Radha. So I was very curious to know, although I didn't want to read that Gita, but I was curious to know that Srila Prabhupada really hammered him. And I'm going to read what Mother Vishaka has written, Yaduvar Prabhu's wife. I'm just going to quote, it's very interesting here. I'm just going to read what she has said here. One morning, a few of us went with Srila Prabhupada to the home of Dr. Radha, an elderly Indian scholar and a former president of India, who, in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, had written that it was not to the person Krishna to whom we should surrender, but to the unborn, beginningless, eternal, who speaks through Krishna. It's amazing. When he had heard this statement in 1966, at the first Hare Krishna ashram on Manhattan's Lower East Side, Prabhupada had called Radha Krishnan an impersonalist. Someone who thinks God's form is material and beyond God is the formless, senseless energy of the Supreme Absolute Truth. In Radha Krishnan's view, God was subordinate to that energy. Referring to Radha Krishnan, Prabhupada had spoken very strongly. Quote, "This rascal commentator says, it is not to the person Krishna that we should offer obeisances, but to the soul within Krishna. Just see how ignorant he is. He does not know that for Krishna there is no such division between his self or soul and his body. This fool is rascal number 1. And yet, he has written a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita and is accepted as a scholar. And this nonsense is going on all over the world." And Mother Vishaka says, at that time, Dr. Radhakrishnan was very, very old. He could not walk, so he was on a wheelchair, and his attendant brought him in front of Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada actually chastised him and said, you know, this Gita is referring to the personality who spoke the Gita, and Krishna is not some senseless form. And Mother Vishaka has written that she was watching Dr. Radhakrishnan at that point. He could not speak, he was so old, I think he was 90 or 92. And she said she saw his eyes, and his eyes were full of pain and bewilderment and like shock. And he wanted to accept what Srila Prabhupada was saying, and he wanted to say something. But he was so bewildered, and at that point his attendant felt that, Swamiji, Dr. Krishnan is feeling very tired, it's time to go back to his bedroom. and she wheeled him away. She or he, I don't remember, wheeled him away. So this is Mother Vishakha's realization that when Srila Prabhupada came down very heavy, and we know Srila Prabhupada was completely outright with people, exactly showing them what the true knowledge is. It is mentioned that she noticed something in Dr. Radhakrishnan's eyes. Maybe at the time in his life he realized that he was all wrong, but we don't know at this point. So Dr. Radhakrishnan has written so much dry philosophy in his commentary to the Gita, and I can read it, but it will destroy the taste of the Bhagavatam class, so I'm not going to read it. I was going to read it, but in front of all the beautiful deities, I don't want to read it here. So I just wanted to share this, that there's so much danger in this material world with regard to scholarly attitudes. And even when I do preaching with my students, we used to have the Bhagavad Gita class in a Bhakti club, we used to teach students from the university, and students would say, they've read all the Gita, they know everything. And I would ask them, how often do you read the Gita? They said, well, we would read it before the final exams, because they wanted to get the blessing of Krishna before the final exam, so they could get good points. And I said, do you read regularly? 99% of students, at least I mentioned about the students in the Western world, do not read the Gita, 99%. So we can't even talk about Bhagavatam at this point. Forget about Chaitanya Charitamrita. So just to get them started on the Gita, it's very, very important to really be very kind and compassionate and gentle to them, because the kids are not to blame. It's how they were raised culturally, socially, and in the family atmosphere that they got influenced. And when they come to the Western world, they're getting even much more influenced. There's a lot of stress here. And now my fear as an educator is, because of the advent of artificial intelligence, Gita will have 1 million more interpretations. And that's a huge danger. You just have to type a word, who is Krishna, and artificial intelligence gives you a whole slew of answers. Krishna is an energy, he is a personality in a human form, who is an incarnation of Vishnu. There's all kinds of misinterpretations which is given by artificial intelligence. And students are referring to artificial intelligence now for all their responses. So just imagine if the students are not holding a physical paper book in their hand, and they're simply relying on AI, you can just imagine what kind of incorrect education they're going to get. Because that's simply a robot, it's just a machine. It's not somebody who has realized the philosophy of the Gita. So I just wanted to share this, that the job in front of us is much harder. And Swaz Prabhu, I'm sure you can attest to it, being the trustee of the BBT. But we do know 10,000 years is the golden age, as Lord Chaitanya has predicted. So the movement will rise, but what will happen after 10,000 years is going to be a huge decline. So regardless, despite the fact that we have the golden age, I don't think we should let go of our guard, and we should become even more enthused in actually giving the right version of the Shastras to whomever we are meeting. And that's very, very important to us, and not really rely on technology to give us the answers, but really, in fact, when Archita Prabhu asked me, do you want to read from your phone or your laptop? I said, no, I need a physical copy of the Gita. I just love holding the book and I love flipping the pages. I am so tired of the phone and technology, but it is amazing how you read the book and you can actually feel that this is Krishna in the beautiful words and the translation and the covers and the pictures. So this is absolutely amazing. And sorry for taking 3 minutes extra. I just wanted to share this with you. If there's any questions or comments or suggestions on how we can do better or how I can do better, please do let me know. Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Very nice class. Mataji, at the end of the annihilation, when the jivas that don't go back to Godhead, they merge into the body of Mahavishnu or Karunakasaya Vishnu. So the Pradhāna also merge into the body of the Lord, or the Pradhāna always remains?
Pradhāna always remains. Because if it's merging, that means it's subject to creation and annihilation. So Prakriti is annihilated, but Pradhāna is eternal. So you can see as Pradhāna as Krishna's treasury, and that's eternal. So when Krishna glances on his treasury, which is all the material ingredients with the material modes of nature, then it's manifest as Prakriti. So Pradhāna is always there. It's subtle, undifferentiated. So it's very easy to confuse between Pradhāna and Brahman, but they are very distinct.
Thank you.
His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.